Now, all interviewers have their own style, and my style is to try to get to the point and to be intensely curious and to be brief, because the subject counts. Now, too many interviews you watch today, television talk shows guilty of this a lot, and sports interviews in locker rooms, is that it's all about the interviewer. It's showing off. So if you turn on my show, the guest should be talking 90% of the time. 90%. Of course, it ain't about me. It's about him or her. Too many people, it revolves around them. You know, it's my show, and you're a subject. You're an adjunct. You're a prop. You're never a prop on my show. And so when you see a lot of bad interviews, and so sometimes you'll see a guy in a locker room with the winning pitcher of a World Series game. Okay, Cliff Lee, opening game 19 of the 2009 World Series. Cliff, when you were on the Indians this year, you were 14-12, and then you got traded to the Phillies. With the Phillies is in the middle of a locker room. Phillies, you were 5-1, and then tonight you come into this game. You had that curveball working, the fastball working, you hit the corners. You seem to be way ahead of the batters. And then you put the mic in front of him. There was no question asked. The interviewer is telling him all he knows about an event we just saw, whereas my question would have been, what'd you do tonight? What was it like? I could go into a locker room, is the truth, and not know the sport and not know if the person I'm interviewing, let's say the coach or manager, had won or lost, and still get through 4 or 5 questions, without knowing that. Like, what surprised you tonight? Can you use tonight the next time you play? Did you have a plan for this evening? Did they do something you didn't expect? What's the long-range effect of tonight? I don't know the sport. I don't know if they won or lost. But all questions are curious. And to me, too many interviewers are not curious. They're curious. They're only interested in themselves and not interested in the subject or what the subject has to say. And another thing they don't do is listen. And the key to interviewing is listening. If I've never asked a question thinking about the next question. Never had a question prepared. I've got a blue card that has bullet points about the subject and what's been happening, but I've never had a question written out, ever. Because if I start listing questions, then I'm going to look at what's the next one. I'm not listening to the answer. This happened to me once. I was touring for a book, one of my books, and I was on a show called Good Morning Dallas. It had a man and a woman host. Now, you can picture what they look like. I don't even have to tell you. You know what they look like. You're right. Okay. Now the woman is interviewing me. She's got the blonde hair, the frizzles, all that. And she's got 6 or 7 questions written out. I can see them written. I'm sitting, she's sitting. And every time she throws to me to ask the question, I'm answering. I could see that she's like looking at the monitor, checking her eyelashes, looking down, and she's not listening. I know she's not listening. And the crew knows she's not listening because they've been watching her for years. So her third question is, tell me, Mr. Kingsrine, look intellectual, what makes a good talk show host? So I start to answer, and I see she's off. She ain't looking at all. So I said, well, I can't speak for others. But in my case, what helps a lot was being employed by the CIA. Because what the CIA does is, they give me clues every night that I send out signals to spies around the world, and they in turn get great guests from me. And her next question was, what's the effect on married life? So it rings bad in my ear when I hear, because I think it's an art form, and I don't take much credit for it, because I had it when I was a kid. I was born with the gift of curiosity. I'm not a big believer in God or anything. I don't know where it came from. If there is a God, I thank him or her. But wherever it came from, to have that, it's a gift. I remember when I was a kid at ball games, the end of a game, most kids wanted autographs. I never cared about an autograph. I would run down the street with a Pee Wee Reese, who later I got to know. But now I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm running down the street. Pee Wee, in the third inning, why did they bunt? Why did you bunt? Why'd you do this? Why? It was always why. Why? And why still fascinates me to this day. Why do people do what they do? What makes them tick? And one of the reasons I loved radio, especially that 3-hour spot, that is I could go through it. You see, television today, you have to go right to the subject, right to the thing, bam, so if I've got a lieutenant on, like the rape case that occurred in Northern California, big rape case, and gang rape, I had a lieutenant on last night. What happened with the rape? Whereas if this were the radio show and I had 3 hours with the lieutenant, what made you be a cop? What brought you to this minute? How hard is it to investigate a rape case, let's say a murder case? What difficulties occur in an investigation? Are there techniques toward getting cooperation? How do you deal with a hostile witness? All those are fascinating to me. Now, on television, the theory is you would lose the audience taking that route. But that's the way I was great. I was never a newsman. I never covered a news event. I was in the middle of news events. There was a building blew up in New York once. I called in. I was on the air after 15 stations describing the blow-up. But Ted Koppel said to me once, if there was a fire, because he was raised in news, and I was raised in pure interviewing, personality interviewing, and a fireman came running out of the fire, Ted Koppel's first question would be, what caused this fire? And Larry King's first question would be, why do you want to fight fires? That's the absolute truth.